I've had the privilege of serving as the chair for the Ad-Hoc Property Team for this last year as we've taken a look at our corner properties and evaluated the sustainability, the financial capacity the church has to sustain them, and evaluate their current status. We wanted to look at what it would look like to develop them and/or create a business plan to continue to have us own and operate them. I'm a builder by trade and was blessed to work with a competent team of other people who understand business, finance, and development. We did a lot of work and explored a lot of options, but in the end, discerned that the best option was to look at selling this property.
I grew up in this church and has been involved in some capacity for nearly a decade. While I was too young to be directly involved in the actual original plans for the church's expansion, I got to benefit from them as a youth. I got to enjoy the new atrium and the new classrooms. Now, I'm proud to be part of the team that's re-envisioning the development of our neighboring properties. And I'm excited about the positive ministry impacts that will have for my children. I'm also proud to be part of a church that is entrepreneurial and seeks to serve the greater community. I love the idea of affordable housing, a cafe that was also a ministry, and a Christian counseling center. Now, while those ideas are no longer viable, I'm so excited to see what the church is going to do with the fruits of this sale.
My family has been part of Talbot Street Church since 1995, and I've been heavily involved in the acquisition of these properties and the renovation and additions to the church over the years. I'm a civil engineer by trade and helped develop concept plans for what we were calling Phase 3, which was the church developing the properties with a high-rise and additional ministry space. I'll admit the plan to sell the properties has been a difficult one for me on one level. Now, I was really committed to the idea of the church developing these properties. In December, as we were working with the lawyer and Tricar to finalize the sale of the property, I just had a moment where I just broke down. This was a transition, a turning point. Now, I do believe this is the best way forward for Talbot Street to carry on its ministry in downtown London and beyond. For me personally, and I know for others, this will be hard and take a little time to adjust to the idea of someone else building this project. But this will enable us to focus on new ministry opportunities.
I've been working as a property director at Talbot Street Church here for about 3 years. One of the first things that we had to do when I first came on was to hire a property management company to oversee our tenants and our buildings that we own, so that this position could be a part-time position and more focused on the ministry of Talbot Street Church. But even with the help of our property management company, managing our buildings in their current state is no easy task. It quickly became clear to me and our property management company that having so many units at such low rent wasn't allowing us to keep up with the maintenance of our aging buildings and units. Although we have always tried to be very gracious and helpful with our tenants, it's a very difficult thing to balance the line between being a church and a landlord, and it hasn't always worked out very well. In the last few years, we were out around $20,000 in rent arrears, and we also had over $25,000 damage done to some of our units, neither of which we will ever recover. This has created a huge financial burden on the property's budget that was already stretched and forced us to increase our line of credit. And speaking of debt, although we were able to decrease our mortgage on the properties, the rapid interest rate increases the last 2 years have significantly increased our monthly debt payments. But what really pushed us to explore the sale of the properties was this building, 535 Talbot Street, which the church purchased about 6 years ago from a lawyer and his law firm. Leased it back to them for the 5 years, which worked out really well. But at the end of 2022, that lease expired and they chose not to extend it, so we took it over. When the church first purchased this building, the team at the time who looked into buying this building was very well aware of the shape that this building was in. So they made some recommendations. Form a team to look into long-term plan for our properties and start saving for possible renovations if the lease wasn't renewed. That savings plan was to set aside $1,000 a month, $60,000 total to prepare for future possible renovations. but due to cash flow problems, we were only able to set aside a bit over half of that. So when we started to take inventory of all that was needed to get the building rentable again, not even the planned $60,000 would have covered it, let alone the actual amount we were able to save. With the help of experts in the field, we investigated options to make this building rentable again. Those things included HVAC, windows, plumbing, electrical, possible asbestos in the building, we have a flat roof that's leaking, and numerous other issues.
The electrical system is probably something that will have to be looked at, and converting this into an apartment setting, the demands for hydro will be more, so the system would probably need to be completely upgraded in order for it to work properly. The other thing that we are dependent on in this particular house is a boiler system, and it's aged as well, and it would probably need some kind of an upgrade. But even with the boiler system, you don't have uniform heat, and it's not in a comfortable setting. So there would be upgrades there as well.
So here you can see is one of the kitchens that was on the second floor. We actually brought a realtor in to see what prospective businesses would be looking at for leases, and basically the only business case there was a large investment that had a long-term payback, so it wasn't an option that we wanted to explore.
And here we have the example of some of the exterior windows. A lot of them are just single pane. There is a bit of a storm on the outside, but again, it will not work very well for keeping the cold out. This room, obviously, you can see there is issues with leaking. We have some issues with the roof that would need to be repaired and looked at.
It became apparent that with the issues at both 101 Kent, 531 Talbot, and this building here, that it was time to explore what our future use of these properties are going to be.
I was honored to serve on the Ad Hoc Committee along with Sharon DeVries as representative of the Elder Board. While I don't know a great deal about construction or development, I bring an extensive knowledge of financial matters. And it's in this capacity and as treasurer that I would like to go over the finances of the church. From my perspective, selling the properties is a very good idea. However, I will show you sort of a with and without the sale. The foundation owns 101 Kent and 535 Talbot. 531 legally is owned by Talbot Street Church, but operationally would operate under the foundation. So, let me begin with a picture without selling the properties. These two properties here carry a mortgage of about $700,000, and with that comes a mortgage payment of $7,600 per month at a hefty interest rates of 9.2%. Over the last 12 months, these properties have carried a monthly deficit on average of $5,000, which has required that we go and dip into a line of credit, and we are currently standing at $45,000. On 531, the mortgage is about $230,000. The interest rate is more modest at 5.9, but it still carries a mortgage of about $1,100 a month. Now let's see what happens if we sell the properties. Well, the mortgages would be retired. Along with that, the monthly payments would disappear as well. So in terms of these two properties, this monthly negative cash flow of $5,000 would disappear, improving our cash flow by $60,000 a year. And on that property, it's again, a cash flow improvement of nearly $14,000 annually. And we would retire the line of credit as well. The church has a mortgage of $1.3 million and an interest rate of 5.9. And over the last 6 months, we have paid on average $6,500 a month, and that's an interest only. If we were to sell, again, the mortgage gets retired, we don't have to make payments anymore, and as a result, the cash flow would improve by about $77,000 per year. Now, what does this mean in total? Assuming a baseline sale price of $4 million, and that's a minimum because the agreement with Tricar makes it clear that for every additional unit that they would be allowed to build over and above the minimum, $20,000 would come to the church. 10 additional units, an extra $200,000, for example. But let's take this as a base. From that, we would retire nearly $2.3 million of mortgages and line of credit, leaving us with $1.7 million. Now, there's many things that we can do with this, but imagine that we establish an endowment fund where we can't touch the principal, but where the investment income can be used to help the church further its goals. At 5% per year, that represents an income of $85,000. If we combine that with the cash flow improvement that I mentioned before of about $150,000, that brings us to nearly $240,000 of improved cash flow. Now, what this is not is a green light to encourage people to give less. As Steve has mentioned many, many times, giving is a spiritual discipline that we highly encourage, and it would be a shame to find ourselves back at square one because the $236,000 gain was offset by a decrease in giving. So we encourage you to continue with your giving and see what this improvement in cash flow can help us achieve.
We know that selling these properties is not what many of us had hoped and dreamed for, but we believe that it's the best option for us to move forward presently. We believe it will help us focus on the ministry of the church and inviting people to find and follow Jesus. It was an honor to help lead the team, and we've tried to communicate as honestly and transparently as possible throughout the process. We look forward to the discussion at our meeting and hope we'll be able to provide meaningful answers to your questions. We hope that you'll be able to support us as we finalize this deal and move forward into the exciting future that God has planned for us.